Hey Fit Fam, join me for a lower body warm up. I love to do this routine literally every time before a leg day. It really gets my whole body moving, my mind ready to go to work, my body getting prepared for the work. It stretches, it lengthens, but not too much to where I can't still be explosive. And really, it'd actually be a really good thing to do the day after a leg day or just to get the body loose and moving. Go ahead and join me. I have a few exercises here. These again are the ones that I'll do every time before I have my workout. And one thing to note too, I'm going to just do a set number of reps to keep this relatively shorter. If at any time you feel like you need to stay in one of these moves for a little bit longer, just press pause and then come back and join us, okay? So first thing I like to do are some walkouts. I do a lot of walkouts with my clients in many varieties, but the first one we're going to do is just to get that forward fold. Always make sure you keep that chin tucked. Then we're going to walk it out into our plank position. Get your hands as close to the mat as you can without bending your legs. If they can't quite make it there, just bend your knees until you can. Then go ahead, walk it out, trying to get those legs to straighten out until we're in a plank position. And then because we want to stretch the length in the posterior chain, I'm just going to take my hips to the sky and baby step my feet in until I get my feet to walk to my hands. And then I stand up and step back, okay? We're going to do 2 more of those together each time, just looking to see if we can't get a little more length and get a little more stretch and warm up for that lower body. Now, please note, this is something that can be done before a workout, which means we're not going to have any static stretching. We're not going to be holding any one particular move for too long, because then it's harder for our muscles to contract and flex to complete a movement, okay? By moving through these dynamic warm-ups, we are able to focus on getting the stretch and lengthening, but also warming up the body and not doing too much where it's hard for us to press or curl or push. We did 3 walkouts. If you need to do more, go ahead, pause, and come back to us. We're going to take a runner's lunge. Go ahead and come basically into a deep stretch here, trying to keep the front leg's knee over that ankle, weight's in the heel, and then weight is in the hip. The back leg is as straight as you can, and you're relaxing into this. And I like to push farther forward in this. It works on stretching out that knee. It also makes us start to work on that stability. I usually work 4 to 6 or so on each side. Some days I actually come back at the end of my other warm-up exercises and repeat this one. So I like to hold for just 2 or 3, maybe 4 seconds right here, and then push out of it. Just get one more with me. And then of course we want to hit that other leg. So note, I'm working on warming up each leg separately, and then also each leg together for some bilateral and unilateral movements. One side might be a little tighter than the other, so just feel how that stretches back there. And then you come up out of it, and then we stretch farther forward and back up, okay? So we're gonna work this a couple more times. Make sure, unless this is after your workout, that you're not sitting here for 20 to 30 seconds. This is a great stretch to do that in, but not before our workouts. So the day after, when you're not actually lifting weights, or at the end of your workout, totally fine, but stick to 3 to 5 seconds there, okay? And then I'm gonna get one more here, and then we're gonna work our body weight squats. I think a lot of my clients just wanna rush through these reps, but this is one of the most important things you can do to get our mind and body ready for this. Mind-muscle connection is super important, especially when it comes to the squat, because I know a lot of people that have knee pain and they put so much energy in through the front of the legs that is why they experience that versus getting that backside to help them. So take your time on these, because what we do in our warm-up, we typically replicate in our workout. So go fast here, not get enough engagement. Oftentimes we'll go faster in our workout and not get enough engagement. So I always get those arms to come up here just to force my head to stay lifted higher. You can go ahead, take them into prayer. You can add an added challenge by bringing them behind your head. This is where I typically go. You always want to make sure your feet start a little bit wider than your hips, okay? And then you're going to work on sending those hips back. Now, I have another video that reviews squats, so please feel free to watch that if you need a little bit more direction on this. But you always want to make sure that your knees aren't flaring out, that you're not letting the weight dump into your toes or your knees. And we're working on not letting our chest hinge super forward here, but keep those arms up, gaze forward, send the butt down and back, and then big push through those hips to come up. And that's the part a lot of people miss. They drive through their knees and then get a lot of pressure on their knees, get their quads to fire, which yes, in a squat they will, but almost fire up too much. So again, when you come down, when you come up, think about your hips pushing forward as you're doing that, okay? So down and up. My plan was to work 10 or so here, and I've kind of talked through while we do them. So just give me 2 more, nice and controlled, big squeeze of those glutes, and last one. Okay, if you have time to do both these exercises, feel free. I'm going to show you 2 moves. One is going to be probably a little bit more of a challenge for those just starting out than others. So if you can't do this one, just fast forward till we're on the ground for our next one. But I'm going to do a single leg deadlift. In this case, I'm not going to have any weight. It's all about working that balance, the control, that mind-muscle connection, figuring out where the placement of the weight goes through the hips, through the heels, and getting that motion going. So when we go into our workout, we're already ready. So single leg deadlifts, the way you want to work this is think about your chest, your whole upper body staying as tall and as long as you can. Your gaze stays forward, not down, because I don't want to drive my body down with my head. I want my hip to lead this movement, okay? So one leg's on the ground, planted, other leg is going to go back with us, okay? And then when we hinge forward, it is because our hip is going back, not because I'm rounding down through my upper body, okay? So from the hips up, nice and secure, stable. Your hands could come at your side. They could come out, okay? They could come out in front. You could work on just placing it on that hip so you feel that hinge that's created, all while keeping that knee over that ankle and the weight back in this hip. Once you get as far down into that position as you can, you're just going to work on pushing through that hip to stand up. Now, what I see a lot of times is when people come from this, they come up really quick and they're kind of wobbly. That is typically because they didn't slow down enough and they were more likely than not pulling up with their upper body than letting the hinge in their hip guide them up, okay? We're going to work one more on this right side. Always making sure your hips and shoulders stay square to the ground. Big push. And now we'll hit the other side. If you were just watching me while I was demoing, that is okay. You can just pause and then regroup once you've gotten in 3 to 4 each side. One side might be a little bit better than the other, but you're thinking about leading that head down because of the hip hinge, not because we're letting that gaze drop forward and down and we're rounding through that upper body. Okay, so last one on this side. And big push up. And like I said, if you're not comfortable with that, skip past this one and join us for our single leg glute bridge. If you did the single leg deadlift, you could easily skip the single leg glute bridge. It's a really great warm up. And it is also a single-sided movement, which is my goal in that part of the warm up, is just to start thinking about our legs separately. For a single leg glute bridge, you lay back, make sure you tuck that back to the ground. One foot's going to stay in the ground and the other foot comes into the air, okay? Now, take note, I have another video on this if you want to know more on how to do a single leg glute bridge, but really what it comes down to is the closer the leg is to your face, the easier you make it. The farther away it is, the harder you make it. This is more of an advanced move. If you're not too great at this yet, you could also cross that leg that's supposed to be in the air on top of the bent leg, and that'll help you. But what we're targeting here is the glute of the planted foot. So one leg's in the air, one leg's on the ground. Get a big press up, squeeze, okay? Make sure that you're feeling it more in your butt than your hamstring or your knee. Adjust accordingly. If it's more in your knee, bring your heel out. If it's more in your hamstring, bring your heel in. Take it up, pause, and then take it back down, okay? Again, if this leg in the air was to come towards my body, I'm going to be making it a little bit easier for myself versus if it's out in front. Now, this is just our warm up. So we're working on warming up that mind muscle connection and also the range that we can do. So maybe each time you notice you can get a little bit higher, you can hold for a little bit longer. But what I always want you to think about in any of these moves is when I take my hips up, is it in my glute? Do I feel it? Yes. Now I can release down and then I can push back up. So always work on bringing that mind muscle connection into the warm up. We're going to go ahead and get 10 on each side here. You can work 5, you can work 8, especially if you haven't been doing these before. The goal is to make sure you're warmed up for your workout. So if you need to spend a few more reps to do that, go ahead and do that. Remember, not all sides created equal. You might notice sometimes one of your hips drops a little bit. So always make sure you're squaring up those hips and keeping those hips in the air at the top of the movement, level, and get a big squeeze through the glute of that planted leg. I'm going to push a few more reps, seeing how much of my upper mid back I can get off the ground through the energy that drives through my glute. Think about the energy through your heel all the way up past your calf, past your hamstring, right to where your glute and your hamstring meets. And that's what we're trying to squeeze here. Okay, so a few more of these. We just have 2 moves left to do. Okay. And last one, remember, take it up, squeeze. I feel it, it's burning, it's engaged, perfect, lower it down. And anytime after I come off a position like that, if you ever want to take your knees in your chest, give yourself a big hug. You can even rock that low back side to side a little bit, and that's going to help release tension. One thing I like to do when I'm transitioning from these moves is some hip openers. For hip openers, you're going to make 2 90-degree angles with those legs. Hands can come back. Modification to make it a little challenging would be to keep those hands out in front of you. But with your hands back or in front of you, you're working on just taking your legs and pivoting and rotating them. And then when we do that, you're going to push that hip into the ground to get that stretch right there in that hip flexor, okay? And then you can pivot it back. Big push to finish that in that opposite side. Back and forth here. Again, if you want to work a little bit more mobility, a little bit more of a challenge, you could have your hands out in front of you. Some days you might find this is a little easier than others. And again, this isn't static stretching, right? We're moving through this range of motion, trying to open up those hips. Okay, and I'm going to get one more because, again, it feels really good here. Okay, perfect. And then the last thing we're going to do is our glute bridge. A glute bridge is super important to help us work that mind muscle connection. And it's really good when we can get the control and the squeeze in the right places to help strengthen our glutes. That will help protect our low back. All right. So if you need to work on that anymore, I do have a video for glute bridge. So check that out. This is a part of our warm up. We're just going to hold it here for 1 minute. If you need to do it a couple times, you could do it a couple times. If you want to work it into your workouts and do them between each set, you're welcome to do that. Just make sure your hips, knees, and ankles are all the same width. Push your hands into the ground, tuck your pelvis so your back flattens out on the ground. Then big lift and hold here. Squeeze the butt cheeks like you have a $100 bill back there that you don't want to lose, and you just hold it. Now, if you feel the tension in your knees, it might mean your heels are too close to your butt. If you feel too much tension in the hamstrings and not enough emphasis on the glutes, your heels are probably too far away. So just work on finding that adjustment, keeping that back flat, keeping those glutes tight. And we're just going to hold here for another 45 seconds. And you always kind of want to check in too, because it'd be easy to lose some engagement or think about something else. But the more present and active you can keep those glutes and the control, the better off we are, which is also something good to think about in your workout too. That mind muscle connection, being present, staying focused, because the more you focus on the move you're working rather than going through the motions, the more you're going to get out of that. Even though I'm talking to you, I've been squeezing my butt. The burn should be there. Slowly lower out of that, 1 vertebrae at a time. Another great opportunity to take your knees into your chest and give yourself a big hug and rock side to side for that low back. That is my lower body routine before my leg day. So feel free to turn this on, do this before your workout. If you're really sore after a leg day, this is another way to work through some of that soreness. If you liked this and you want more content, please hit the like and subscribe button for more.